Yelan is a nearly perfect character. Her aesthetics, her personality, and her kit are all incredibly well thought out and put together. She's definitely one of, if not the best character we've seen since Raiden's release, and that really shows in her banner sales. Her ability to deal off-field hydro damage while also buffing your on-field character is amazing, and her elemental skill is incredibly fun. Because she can be used in most vaporized teams and tons of freeze teams, Yelan is just an amazing overall unit and definitely shouldn't be undersold. It is kind of weird though, because there is a narrative going around that if you have Xingqiu, you don't really need Yelan, and though technically yes, you don't really need Yelan if you have Xingqiu, or just in general, I feel like she's being sort of downplayed by those players. If you're GigaChat and follow this channel, you may not have seen that sort of discourse, but it exists in some sections of the community. And don't get me wrong, Xingqiu is a pretty broken unit. He provides almost as much damage as Yelan does with a slightly different spin. But what if I told you, you can use them together? Some of you may already know about this, but for those who don't, double hydro is broken. Well, Yelan and Xingqiu are broken. Other double hydros aren't as good. I'm not sure why, but whenever you mention double hydro, players will say hydro resonance is bad, almost as if it's an excuse to not use two hydro units at the same time. Yes, hydro resonance is bad. Most healers in the game don't really struggle with healing at all. Even for the bonus it gives Xingqiu's tiny bit of healing, it's not great. But imagine a massive damage increase to compensate for bad resonance. That's exactly what Yelan and Xingqiu do together. Imagine you have Xingqiu on Sacrificial Sword build that does 3,711 damage per rain sword. At C6, he gets roughly 10 rain swords every 3 seconds, meaning you're getting roughly 12,000 bonus damage per second off of Xingqiu. That's not including any other buffs, that's just raw damage. With buffs and resistance shred, it would be even higher. That's also not including the vaporized bonus you'd be giving to your pyro characters. That is 12,000 bonus damage per second with no extra cost. Now let's say that you have Yelan on a Favonius Warbow build and she's dealing 5,153 damage per hit, dealing 46,377 damage over 3 seconds, or roughly 15,000 damage per second. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's me. I'm you in this scenario. Which one would you prefer to use, assuming you're also getting Yelan's damage buff and vaporizing every hit?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Turn that 12,000 damage per second into 27,000 damage per second. Both of these characters deal a ton of off-field damage, and my damage is pretty low, all things considered. Other players have outdone this damage without even batting an eye. But you know what's even better than that? Since you're generating so many particles with Favonius Yelan and Sacrificial Xingqiu, you can actually switch up one of their builds fairly reliably. For example, if you were having energy issues with Yelan before by using Aqua, you don't really have them anymore. Xingqiu's gonna take away all of those energy problems with his particles and Sacrificial Sword. Or if you have something like Mist Splitter or Jade Cutter that you want to use on Xingqiu, you can pretty reliably battery Xingqiu with the help of Yelan's Hydro and White Particles from Favonius. That'll make your damage even higher, and it's a pretty significant damage increase as well. Just to be clear, the number that I estimated was all crits, but it's also without buffs. With someone like Zhongli or a Viridescent Venerer character, that damage gets much stronger. On top of that, the Hydro application is just kind of ridiculous. To put it simply, pyro characters get their damage increased by a ton when you use them in vaporized teams. Xingqiu just happens to apply enough hydro to allow essentially every pyro DPS in the game to vaporize almost every hit, or at least all of the important hits. Yelan can apply enough for most pyro characters in the game, but you can't usually run characters that would affect the hydro aura on enemies. For example, there is a risk to running Toma with Hu Tower D-Luke when you have Xingqiu below C6, and if you're animation canceling even at C6 on occasion, that could be an issue. With Yelan and Xingqiu though, you apply so much hydro that that's basically never an issue. If you want to see what I'm talking about, watch the hydro application on this enemy with just Hu Tao and double hydro. Now watch it with Hu Tao and Xiangling. Even with another insanely high source of pyro application and damage, the Hydro Aura is almost always active. Together, their Hydro application is ridiculously good. And though Yelan works alone with Yoimiya too, if you add Xingqiu, you get damage reduction as well and stagger resist, which can really help Yoimiya finish out her combos and get the most damage possible. Another thing that I noticed is that if you're using the 4-piece Shimenawa set on anyone, in my case it's Yoimiya, and you use Sacrificial Sword Xingqiu with Favonius Yelan, you basically don't have any energy issues with Shimenawa with the right rotation. For example, I never really recommended 4-piece Shimenawa on Yoimiya unless you knew the proper rotation, because otherwise you would have some issues getting the 50% damage bonus if you're using her burst at all. And the way to max out Yoimiya's damage would be to use her burst, rotate through your supports, and then use her skill and then end with her burst again. And for players who don't pay attention to their energy at all when playing Shimenawa, they may use Yoimiya's burst thinking it's a good idea and then not notice that they're not getting the 50% damage bonus, and it would really hurt their team's damage output. But with all of the energy particles that Xingqiu and Yelan are generating, if you open up the fight with her burst and rotate through your supports, you'll rarely have Shimenawa issues. Between the two characters, you're removing a lot of the energy problems that they had, buffing your main damage dealer with Yelan's passive and vaporize opportunities, and increasing your team's overall damage output by a ton. It even works with Yunjin if you're using Favonius Lance on Yunjin and Favonius Warbow on Yelan. You can end your rotation with either one of these, funnel the white particles into Yoimiya, and sometimes she might even be well above half her energy bank full. And they don't stop at vaporize either. Yelan and Xingqiu in Taser can also help out with electrocharge reactions and Hydro application. The damage is just super high, and considering that you don't use a healer in Taser typically, that Hydro resonance, even though it's a tiny bit of bonus healing, it still does help. Yelan and Xingqiu together are honestly just a super broken combo, and at the moment, kind of underrated. Players who are super involved in the theory crafting community know all about the combo, but to be honest, I still wanted to take the opportunity to tell you all about it because it's such an amazing synergy. If you pulled for Yelan to be a second Xingqiu, that's still possible and not a bad idea at all. But if you find that you have Yelan and don't need a Hydro applier for both sides of Spiral Abyss, try using them together. Yelan works with tons of characters and teams, including most Pyro characters and any Electro character. I even suspect she's going to be great with Dendro units. But so far, one of her best synergies is with Xingqiu, who's able to alleviate some of her energy problems and allow her to be built more into damage as a result. Combine that with absurd damage between the two characters and a teeny tiny bit of healing bonus from Hydro Resonance, and you have an amazingly powerful combo that's worth trying for any player. If you want to see any testing behind this combo, come check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/Braxophone. Or if you're looking for more of the math side of things, check out Zajeff's channel where he covers a lot of the newer units with pretty spreadsheets. If you liked the video, if you enjoyed watching it, make sure to leave a like below, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thanks for watching everyone. I'll catch you next time.
Rain cutter. Things are about to get dicey. Quietly now. No, my sword! Witness the power! Game's up. Fun's over.